Thank you for all for coming. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin, native currency of the internet, restores the law of nature. So it's all started in 2009. Bitcoin emerged right after the financial crisis. The first block in the blockchain contained a message pointing to a news headline, which said, Times, January 3, 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. So this financial crisis was really about crisis of Western liberal democracy. And then now, and this was a particular style of governance that was developed in the US and it was exported around the world. And now in 2019, this crisis of democracy seems to have deepened. And we are seeing a real test for Western democracy with the US government's aggressive prosecution of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and whistleblower Chelsea Manning. But this crisis of Western democracy didn't really emerge just now or even back in 2009. Roots of the program existed at the very beginning of this country. Specifically, it's the establishment of its constitutional republic. And in fact, Thomas Jefferson, the author of an American founding document, predicted exactly this crisis that we are facing. He said, there would come a time when the American system of government would degenerate into a form of elective despotism. So we had a security hole in the US model of governance, specifically the system of checks and balance of power implemented in the US Constitution. And this made the American form of governance diverge from its original vision, articulated in its white paper, dated July 4th, 1776. So we had a white paper, the Declaration of Independence that we all love. And in this, Thomas Jefferson said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And Jefferson made it clear, these rights promised to the new world were entitled by laws of nature. So we are all given these rights by nature. So what are these nature's laws that Thomas Jefferson was referring to? There was invisible force that governs the universe. So nature has its own way of governance that binds us all equally. So whether we know it or not, we are all bound by this force of nature that exists in this world. So it's like the laws of gravity and electricity and magnetism. And it doesn't matter who you are, nationality you belong to, the language spoken. We are all governed by these laws of nature. So, and humans didn't invent these laws of nature. The nature's laws already existed even before humans arrived on this planet. So for instance, the law of gravity was not invented by Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton simply discovered it. These forces were already there. And in the same way, electricity was there to be discovered. And all Benjamin Franklin did, he just simply found a way to demonstrate the connection between lightning and electricity through his kite experiment. So, what do? We humans observe nature and its activities. And upon it, we formulate principles and theories. And with this knowledge, we humans make applications that can benefit a larger society. In the continent of North America, before Europeans arrived, civilizations based on nature already existed. There were people who acknowledged the force of nature and lived in harmony with it. So who are these people? Does anyone know? Who can guess who are these people are? Yes, they are Native Americans. So Native Americans observed how nature works through decentralization. And for them, its model of governance is democracy. And their democracy was based on the principle of peace. So for instance, the Hopi tribes of Arizona understood nature's way of governance as the principle of peace. They lived in harmony with nature. And also the Iroquois nation established the great law of peace. And their confederacy is one of the oldest living participatory democracies on earth. It's still working. And it is very important to understand how their concept of peace is different from we modern people think of what peace is. So to Native Americans, peace diverges from European religious principle of dualistic morality that create a radical separation between good and evil. And it is the state of neutrality that acknowledges an interconnectedness of good and evil. So it includes all the forces of life, even what we call evil. So to them, peace is all-inclusive. It's not doesn't have a moral authority to tell us what is right, what is wrong, what is, and it's now we are seeing with our financial institutions that tell us which transaction is a right way to use money and what is appropriate behavior, right? And then for them, for Native Americans, their peace was different. It was all-inclusive. And upon their understanding of peace, the Iroquois instituted a rule of consensus, a decentralized decision-making process. And at the heart of it was the emblem of free speech, in which everyone is given equal freedom to voice their opinions, and nobody is forced to do something against their will. And Native Americans used wampum belt, which was an early form of money, but used as public ledger. And this wampum belt is a traditional shell bead that forms symbolic designs and code. The First Nation used it to recite the great law and to settle dispute among tribes and conduct diplomatic business. And in the development of the United States, unfortunately, early European settlers failed to understand the wisdom inherent in nature. So men created laws that violate the underlying nature's law of democracy. And as a result, Western civilization went separate ways from one of Native Americans. So civilization is nature's first application. So any civilization that are not built upon laws of nature become insecure and even become destructive in the end. So the US model of governance was insecure because it didn't lay its foundation upon nature's laws. So it became hierarchical, and it's created a concentration of power in the hands of an elite few. And it turned American Republic into a global empire with militarism. And now this vulnerability in the system is further exploited to create censorship and surveillance online. And it is as the conquest of nature continues in the form of surveillance capitalism and the military occupation of cyberspace, Bitcoin has emerged. So, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a project of free software, and free as freedom, not in terms of price. So the best way to understand it is free as free speech, not as free beer. And Bitcoin revives Native Americans' principle of the rule of consensus on a piece of mathematics. And it preserves peace with its defining feature of censorship resistance and permissionless free speech. So for instance, Bitcoin allows people all over the world to exercise their right to free speech in the form of money as speech. It doesn't censor speech and can be used by anyone. Bitcoin really doesn't care who you are and what content, what transaction you are using for. And also, Bitcoin's consensus algorithm is a real innovation based on the application of the law of nature. So Satoshi observed the force that governs nature, manifested in the law of thermodynamics, principle concerning heat, temperature, and their relation to energy. And with the knowledge of human nature, Satoshi found a way to coordinate human actions to build a new economy. So, Bitcoin, native currency on the internet, its consensus algorithm revives Native Americans' rule of consensus. So Bitcoin embodies peace. Bitcoin is neutral. And Bitcoin embraces interconnectedness in a form of decentralized network. And Bitcoin promotes diversity through censorship resistance, making sure diverse opinions are always protected. And Bitcoin is wilderness. It's open, borderless, and frictionless. And Bitcoin is spontaneous. And this nature's force, spontaneous force, is enabled free market. So what we call invisible hands of market is really backed by laws of nature. And Bitcoin is autonomous. So nature doesn't need humans for it to exist. Nature is self-sustaining and autonomous. So in the same way, Bitcoin self-regulates itself through the law of mathematics, and Bitcoin enables sovereignty. So, what is the significance of Bitcoin in the world we live in right now? The Hopi had prophecies about impending world destruction, and they warned about the day of purification. So the prophecy, according to prophecies, anything that is not aligned with the force of nature will be destroyed. So now we are seeing a chaos, economic crisis, natural disasters, government corruptions. So anything that is not in harmony with nature, it seems to be being destroyed. And now nature is asking all of us to make a choice, make a decision. Do we choose to honor the nature of law or go against them? And there are those, fortunately, who already made a decision, who decided to go with the way of nature and to restore the rule of law in society. And they find the source of nature's wisdom is in mathematics, and they use it to codify nature's way of life into law. So who are these people? Can anyone guess who are these people? Are these people here today? Yes, cypherpunks. So cypherpunks are a group that advocates social and political change with the use of strong cryptography. They write code to build a civilization in harmony with nature. What is encoded in the Bitcoin white paper could be a pathway to reunite with Native American elders. So we had wampum, and Thomas Jefferson brought the ideals infused in the Declaration of Independence. And the Constitution was supposed to be the fulfillment of these ideals. But we failed to do it up till now. And now we have Satoshi's white paper that could potentially bridge these ideals and fulfill ideals of our founding fathers and founding mothers. So let's go back to Jefferson's vision once again. Jefferson said, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of securing its citizens' unalienable rights, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. So, day of purification has begun, and Bitcoin started to disrupt the world. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is nature's revolt, No one can rig market backed by nature's law. Nature is dynamic, spontaneous, and alive. So what we see in Bitcoin's price volatility is nature is back. We are seeing nature brought back to our world. That's why Bitcoin is so volatile and wild. And this nature's code of equality and liberty for all the people is unstoppable. Wherever we live, regardless of nationality, language spoken, skin color, we are all made equal under the law of nature. Now, in the age of internet, the imagination of computer science offers a way for us to preserve the rights granted by nature's security, making them our universal and unalienable rights. Now, new networks are being made by linking the knowledge of computer science with the wisdom of the First Nations who have lived nature's way of peace. Once diverged paths can come together to begin a new civilization. Thank you very much. And if you liked my presentation, please consider sending some Bitcoins to Julian Assange's legal fund. Julian Assange is one of the cypherpunks who fought fiercely for our freedom. And the keynote speaker, Edward Snowden, that we just saw, that he's now able to speak freely because it's Julian Assange and Sarah Harrison of WikiLeaks helped Snowden. So please be generous and send some Bitcoin. And also, I am wearing WikiLeaks QR code, so you can send a Bitcoin to me as well, right here. Thank you so much.